Brickmaniacs. We are here at the GHQ talking about the EAA Airventure 2019. Brickmania just got back from its first year there. I'm here with Landon, Cody, and Slam. We're going to break down a little bit about what happened this past week. So Landon, why don't you start? Just first time there, initial thoughts, reactions, what was it like? Obviously the scale was huge, but what was it like to be there?
So normally we're used to going to Lego conventions, but this was just totally different. This is unlike anything. We're used to building these small 1/35th scale models and like the tiny minifigures, but it's crazy to see stuff like in person. So it was just unlike anything. So it was really awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. So these models here were actually there in their true form, not in Lego form. So it was awesome to say, hey, I built the C-47 model after the actual one that's currently parked right here. So got to film some quick videos about that and meet some cool guys, the guys who actually owned it, as well as the F-35B. There was a C model there. And that was okay.
We won't get into that.
We won't get into that. And yeah, we had the Blue Nose Mustang. I think that was the first video we filmed there. So it's cool to walk around with the models and people stop you and say, whoa, that's cool. Where did you get that? It's like, well, I'll tell you.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, swing by our booth, Hangar C.
Yeah,
Slam?
I love going to museums, and I'm kind of used to getting super excited about seeing one plane that's like an old antique warbird somewhere and just geeking out over it. And this was like almost overwhelming because there was like 30 or 40 Mustangs in a field. And it's like Mustang overload. Like I want to look at each and every single one of these and, but too many Mustangs.
Mm-hmm.
Like I need to have time to go look at the Corsair over there. And there's so many cool planes. And having an A-10 fly overhead every day was just, cool as hell.
It was still really cool just to see it fly around and be like, well, we have a Lego model of that, but it's just the most iconic sound you could. And then they just turned in 90 degrees and it's a super agile aircraft. It's really remarkable.
So kind of a cliche question here, but one we absolutely have to ask. Favorite part? Whether it's a plane or just a portion of the week that you got to do other than, hanging out at the VRBO with the Brickmania crew, which was awesome. But at the actual air show, what was the coolest part that you guys got to see?
Oh man, I guess I don't know if I could pick out one favorite part, but definitely what stood out the most and kind of took me back was just how freaking loud everything is. Like it's unbelievable how you can feel how powerful these jets are, and they're like a mile away. It's
right.
Like you can hear the when the F-35 was just like doing nearby flyby, just like everyone stopped and you couldn't hear anything other than that like rocket engine is what it sounds like. It sounds like a rocket taking off for space. That's just, you can feel it almost, as much as you can hear it. Mm-hmm. That was cool. It's crazy.
Yeah, definitely springing off of seeing the F-22 fly around. It's like what magic is currently keeping this thing up in the air, especially when it did a slow speed flyby.
Yeah.
And it's just hanging there in the air. And then it takes off again. And especially how tight it could turn. A very tight turning radius. It was very impressive. And they flew it every day, so you never get sick of watching it. And anytime I could hear it flying around, I would step outside and be like, even though I saw it the last 2 days, it's just, I have to see this again.
Yeah, it never gets old.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they put handbrakes in F-22s?
Yeah, apparently,
I'm pretty sure I saw one do a handbrake turn and just slide into a parking spot, not follow this guy, and just slowly go back the way it came. And it was just like, magic? There's magic involved.
It's flying back to Area 51, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and I had to say, from my standpoint, the heritage flights was crazy cool, just because it's something that you never really thought you'd see. I mean, you're aware of the existence of both of these planes. The F-22 and the P-51 are kind of what come to mind. But then, seeing them fly together and bank in the sky, I mean, that's literally something that you don't see anywhere else in the world. So that was a really cool thing to be able to see there, I think. So
I really liked seeing the Apache. That was there, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Apache. Yeah, that was cool.
Totally fair.
And it was right up. You could get inside the cockpit practically. There was a kind of a crowd around it, but it was just cool to see all that, just the equipment, sticking my face, and inside the flight panels are all right there, and all the different markings, you can see it up close. We have some sticker packs, but man, I'm thinking we need to double the amount of printing and stickers on everything. That was cool.
Yeah, and those guys, they were cool with us too.
Yeah.
I remember Dan and I walked by like, oh, you guys are the Lego guys, right? You ever built one of these? And they just started a conversation.
Apache was my answer to like childhood favorite helicopter. I mean, just so stupidly cool looking. With the gun underneath and that helmet tracking and the rest of that. I didn't see it flying, but it's like got up close to it. They had a nice collection of old MiGs, and man, those are some beautiful planes. Just the raw aluminum, beautiful sunny days. Like getting up close to those was just, that was something.
So I guess, Cody, before we get into the inspiration stuff, let's talk a little bit about the Corsair and kind of the connection that you had there. So you got to meet a really cool family and then be able to go sit in that. Tell me about that experience and what that was like.
Yeah, so it was sitting at the store that we had set up, and it was towards the end of the day. I wasn't super into talking to any more people, and so I was just kind of ignoring them a little bit. They were looking, just hearing the conversation. Usually I jump in and start talking, and it wasn't about that at the moment. But then one of them came up and asked me a question about the Corsair, and so I was just kind of breaking down the models, prices of things, what's kind of in that range, and they're like, well, no, we want the Corsair because our dad owns one. Dad / husband. It was the rest of the family, and I was like, oh, cool. So which Corsair is it? And they weren't too sure which one it was. And I was like, oh, is it the one with the checker pattern on it? And they're like, yeah, that was it. And at the time, I wasn't aware that both of the Corsairs there had a checker pattern. So once we closed the store, they wrote down the phone number of the pilot, and I called him a couple times, didn't get an answer. We walked around, watched the show for a while, and we saw his Corsair fire up and like it was going to take off. They had mentioned that he was going to do some acrobatics. So didn't look like we were going to be able to see it that day, but then he turned his engine off and wasn't able to fly. He was leaking brake fluid, so he wouldn't have been able to stop. So he didn't get to fly, but we did talk to him for a little bit. We got him mic'd up, shot a quick video with him, and he let me sit in the cockpit. So I was like a dream come true. So it pays to talk to people and find out their stories.
Yeah, very cool.
I learned that lesson, so it paid off.
So obviously, too, at a place like EAA Airventure, the inspiration for guys on our design team is pretty much limitless. There's a lot going on there, and specifically for you, Slam, an incredible collection of artwork, both historical and modern. What were some of the pieces that you saw that either got you excited about future builds we have going on, or just inspired you to do more?
Yeah, as a guy who gets to do printed tiles and decals and things like that, I mean, anytime I get to get a good solid look at an instrument panel, I'm super excited. So, and like we toured, like, I guess it's just the cockpit of the Sandbar Mitchell, and they had like a Norton bomb sight in there, and they had the bombardier control panel with all the lights, and so just nerding out on those things and just like, I could stare at this for 15 minutes because I might never find a decent photo of it on the internet if I need to. I took a ton of photos, like being up close to a Corsair, and we've done Corsairs before, but one of the last printed tiles I made for the Corsair was like a few exhaust ports on the underside of it, and I could not find a decent reference photo of this to save my life when I was working on it. So I just laid on the ground underneath the Corsair and took a bunch of pictures, just wishing I could send them back in time for when I needed it 2 months ago, but no. So lots of my, like after we're done with work, I just walked around and took pictures, lots of details, lots of vents, rivets, nose art. Like, yeah, I filled my camera up. It was great. Yeah, what a great time. What a great time.
Yeah. Very, very cool. So, and then from a building standpoint, I mean, what did you see that made you go like, oh my goodness, I could build this differently, or I could have used this part once instead of using an internet reference photo, actually getting to stand in front of some of those concepts and planes? And even for stuff in the future, I mean, how did it make you look at things a little differently?
Definitely for things in the future. Some models I had built that weren't currently with me at the show, but like I did that in the past, especially the F-15. Like, well, I really need to update my nose on the F-15. just seeing it in real life is different than looking at pictures online. So being able to walk around and see better how like the body of a jet is shaped rather than just looking at pictures, because the body of a jet, especially on the F-15, F-14, it is wing shaped, but you can't see it so well with the engine bulging out of the sides. That takes up most of the side view or the profile view of an aircraft. So it was really helpful to walk around, see how landing gear functions. Some upcoming kits I'll be working on. Really helpful to stick my head under the nacelle and see how this landing gear folds up, how it retracts, and get some better ideas on that. Yeah.
Invaluable. So from a minifigure standpoint, obviously not every pilot was dressed the way they should be, but there was a lot of historical stuff going on there. I mean, did you find any inspiration? For
Oh,
what was going
absolutely.
on?
It was fun watching they did a demonstration where they actually painted the invasion stripes directly onto the airplane, and it was cool to see how just really rough that was, because I think they were doing that like minutes prior to takeoff, right? So it was just like guys with pretty much like giant brushes or mops or something, really crudely painting that on there. So for the 101st Airborne minifigure that I made, it was cool to see. Like I had the simulated paint on there on the face, and it's just apparently those guys took that right off the airplane as like just prior to getting boarding the airplane. So there's actually they had I believe a veteran was there, a 101st Airborne veteran was actually like there watching the demonstrations. That was kind of cool to, see him sitting there. Like he was practically roped off, It's like don't you gotta like respect this guy, and like it was cool. Like just like those veterans have like kind of like an air around them, or like
Kind of an aura, yeah.
an aura, yeah,
absolutely.
something. It's cool. It's cool to see the actual people who serve there, and then even just the modern pilots that who were flying around in the demonstration. It was fun having them stop by our booth and just be really into what we're putting together. I think you explained the Osprey to a former, was it a pilot of the Osprey, or he had ridden?
He worked on the project.
Yeah,
I
there was
think.
a few people there, but yeah.
Yeah, it was cool to just like talk to the people that actually worked on the actual vehicles that we're working on.
Well, and actually, let's touch on that a little bit, because like I know a lot of really interesting people came through the booth. Really, really cool place for that to happen, obviously. But like Slam, you were having conversations with people from NASA the first day you were there. I mean, talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, we had our lunar astronauts on sale, and we had the Lego lunar lander there, and it was such a huge attention getter. So people came up all day long looking at our astronauts, and it was fun to show our figure that's awesome compared to the Lego one that is a Lego one. So, but yeah, NASA people came up, and one of the guys I met that was super excited to meet was a guy who worked on the lunar lander. From what I gathered, he worked on the compartment that held the rover, and he was in his 80s probably. He was just old timer, and he kept walking away and then coming back and looking again, and it was really great to connect with people with that kind of a role in history, even if it's a small engineering role. I'm an F-14 pilot, and that was cool. So all day long, interesting people coming by our booth, like really, and everybody loves Lego. So yeah.
Who was the pilot that we were talking to? He flew the what they were using for a MiG in Top Gun. What were they using for a MiG?
So it's a T-28.
Was that what? Yeah, there was a T-28 pilot there. We were talking to him. It's just cool to meet the actual pilots of some just different vehicles.
Yeah, he was wearing his flight suit.
Yeah.
And everything.
That was cool.
Was it pure black with a black visor?
No.
No.
We had a hard time getting a picture of him inverted, but
Right.
Can't
How
buy
does that
Polaroid
even
film
work?
anymore.
yeah.
Polaroid film.
Well, and what a cool setup for our booth too, being in that hangar as well. Just kind of your reactions on what you thought people. I mean, there was a lot of exposure at this show with people who weren't familiar for Brickmania. So, like Landon mentioned earlier, obviously Brickmania's been to a lot of Lego conventions in the past, but this was like our first air show, not really connected to toys whatsoever, and it was good exposure for us. There was a lot of people who were unaware of who we were, but were really interested to see what we were about, and that O'Hare got them in the door right away. I mean, what were some of the interesting conversations you had with people who maybe didn't know about Brickmania, but already had kind of that passion for military going on?
I guess some of the conversations that stand out to me, what really hit home with a lot of people was that they're obviously, everyone likes Lego, right? But getting to create the models that they want to build, and most people hadn't heard of us, right, at this show, and it was cool to like like see the people. It just when it clicks, like, oh, that's what they're doing with this. This makes sense now, and like this is like the best way to learn about history, you know. So I thought that was cool to get to have those conversations with just a ton of different people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really receptive crowd, I think, because there was a lot of questions or comments, just people walking by saying, "Oh, it's not Lego," but then you say, "Well, no, it is Lego, just not the company producing it. We're the company producing it." So definitely a lot of those comments that you're able to educate people more on what we are and what we do, and then having people who flew the aircraft tell you like, "Oh, that's really cool. That's exactly how that works," and it's really inspiring to have someone look at the model and pick up on the details and really get an in-depth discussion with people about what these models are capable of doing.
Did the understanding impress you at all, even though it wasn't like a hardcore Lego crowd? It seemed like right away when people understood that we didn't make our own parts, they instantly were like, whoa, like, wow, much more props now. Because I think there's just kind of like when they see something that as shaped as our models are, they're just like, well, can't build that without at least making a few of your own parts. And then once you clarified that to them, even people who aren't hardcore Lego people were like, dang, like, wow. Did that surprise you at all?
I guess it did surprise me because the only other experience I've had going to road shows is you're going to show things off directly to the Lego community who already kind of have an understanding and might be a little more picky. But this crowd was super receptive.
Yeah, I mean, so that kind of goes over the majority of the show that I can think of. Is there anything else you guys want to add from just like a personal anecdotal standpoint?
The Wall of Fire was cool.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, tell me about the night show, actually. We didn't get to, I didn't get to stay for that, neither did Slam, but you guys got to be there. Tell me about that experience.
I was asking people, like, is there anything, this is our first year here, what should we see? And like, you know, maybe, 3 or 4 people were like, oh, you gotta see the Wall of Fire. One person was like, go to the nighttime firework display and just wait. I'm not gonna tell you what it is. And I was like, is it the Wall of Fire? And he's like, oh. The one tip I got for that was like, don't stand too close, or don't sit too close, or you'll be sweating. And I'm like, oh, what's the Wall of Fire? And it's exactly what it sounds like. It is a giant explosion.
How cool is that?
Like takes up the whole runway. It's like, it's cool seeing fireworks, like an awesome, like one of the best fireworks displays that like I've ever seen, and then just like adding in giant fireballs to it. It's a perfect combination.
Yeah, great way to cap off an evening.
So it wasn't my first time to the Oshkosh Air Show, but it's been a few years. So my experience with the Wall of Fire was during the daytime. They would have B-17s or B-25s fly over the runway, and then boosh, there's a huge impractical wall of fire that that you'd see. So seeing it at nighttime is still really cool. And they also had a giant fireball after the Wall of Fire.
With a mushroom cloud.
It was a huge mushroom cloud
man.
that stayed lit for what seemed like endless time.
People told me to go to the nighttime air show, and I'm like, well, how can you even have a nighttime air show? Like, what am I going to see really? I feel like a daytime air show is maybe the better choice, but not realizing that they're using fuel bombs or whatever the heck they're doing. But okay, sad I missed out on that. Very sad.
Next year.
Yeah,
Next
no
year.
kidding.
They would light up the planes that were flying around at night, and they had pyrotechnics on the planes. So there's fireworks going off on the ground, and then fireworks shooting off the wings of the airplanes.
As it flies by.
Yeah.
As it flies through.
As it flies through the fireworks, it's shooting fireworks at you, and it's just...
Whose planes are those?
Whose idea was to do this? What's going on here?
Okay.
Man, and what a sense of like, I mean, I'm sure you felt this a little bit when you sat in the cockpit too, but like even when you have like when we had the serials of the C-47s flying over, it's cool how in an air show of this scale, it helps you put yourself in some of those situations. Like, what would it look like if you just like times that by 100 and covered the sky with these things like it would have been on June 6, 1944, you know what I mean? Like that. So I think that was one of the coolest takeaways, was just being able to look at a field full of P-51s and go like, man, this is what like an airfield may have looked like back in the day. You know what I mean? That's just I don't know where else you'd go to experience something like that.
And like seeing the A-10 fly and come in for an attack run, it's like, I'm scared. Like, if I was putting myself in a soldier's shoes, and that's the last thing you'd see. is hearing the whistle, and then you're toast.
Yeah, very, very impressive display of aircraft and military power just in general. So anything else, guys, that we forget to touch on here?
C5 Galaxy was there. We got to see that take off.
Oh, you get to see the Galaxy take off, huh?
Well, we saw it once it was up in the air, but
I think I was like ordering a hot dog at the time, and I looked oh, I missed it.
yeah, we were both getting brats. And I think camera guy got some good film of that, so we're waiting to see that.
Okay, but I haven't seen that yet.
When the skyscraper took off. That point, I mean, talk about just like putting yourself, when you have the A10 parked right next to the Galaxy, and then it just dwarfs the heck out of it. It's pretty unreal to be able to imagine a beast like that getting up in the air and flying, much less fitting 2 Abrams tanks inside it, right? I mean, that's crazy.
Well, and two, you can disassemble a C-130 and fit it inside the fuselage of that. So seeing a C-130 sitting there, and also having built one in Lego, I can, at 1/35th scale, I can imagine how big the C5 Galaxy would be, and it made me want to cry.
Don't expect that to be a
kid
kid
to
soon.
build something like that.
Yeah, right.
All these airplanes on the runway, they're so massive, and then like I come back the next, like they're constantly moving them around, and I came back the next day and like the A10 was way over there, and the whatever, it was just all moved around. I was like, how did they move these? Oh wait, they're airplanes. There it goes. Oh yeah, they can do that.
I went to that center court, and they had like the 747 from UPS parked there, and like with the nose open, and it's just like the scale of that thing is massive, just huge. And being able to stand up and practically touch an engine of a 747 is pretty cool. But just like again, how is this airfield big enough to land this thing? Especially when it's full of thousands of planes already. Like that's crazy.
Do they know that they're doing this? Is this okay?
So
Have they done this for 50 years?
Yeah, and that's the thing. The C5, isn't that like a 40-year-old airplane? That's not that new. When was it built? Like in the 80s?
I know not much about the C5. Yeah.
Yeah, because that thing, it's been around for a while, so it's cool. Even though it seems super like cutting edge, I mean, it is still pretty freaking advanced, but.
I mean, we spend so much of our time playing with 1/35th scale items, like, and looking at blueprints and photos. Like, just being overwhelmed with scale is a thing that happened all the time out there. Like, a Corsair standing up, like, is a super tall plane. The landing gear is huge. The propeller's huge. And so you're looking at that, and after having looked at Mustangs, and it's just like, oh, we've just scaled up like, by a factor of 2. And then you'll go look at something else, and it's, again, a factor of 2. Yeah. And then eventually 747, factor of 1,000, just so much bigger.
Well, and I was amazed too, like the oh man, I can't remember the exact designation of it now, but it was the ground attack plane, like the A-10 from the Vietnam era. I was amazed at how tall, like how far the pilot would literally have to climb up to get into the cockpit. I'm like, this thing is like 10 feet off the ground, and he's got to jump up to the leg, or up to the wing, like. Who can swing their leg over this thing?
Well,
like,
Cody,
it's
when you were
nuts.
trying to get up onto the Corsair, it's just like you had to like jump from this platform. It's like a Mario game watching you jump up there.
It was actually a lot simpler than I thought it was going to be.
Oh, it's all very
with the
intentional.
handles and stuff in there. Yeah, it's these hidden handles. So they're spring loaded. You just stick your fingers in there and stick your feet in there.
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I talked to an aircrew guy from a C-130, and he was just really, really getting into the details of the C-130 and just like appreciating like how much effort we put into these things, and just like appreciating our geeking out in return. I asked him, so is there anything we missed on it that you can see detail-wise? And he's like, you missed the urinal ports on the back. I'm like, I'm going to tell Cody about that. Next time when we run this kit for real, we're getting urinal ports on that thing.
Functioning.
Yeah, functioning. Yeah.
Printed
Super yellow
elements.
studs.
This plane would be grounded without those. Yeah.
That's definitely a feature you're not going to see in a Lego kit.
Absolutely not.
Functioning urinals.
Functioning.
Oh, yes.
Featuring.
Yeah, that only comes through Brickmania.
Yeah. And that's what you get.
Wait, do the minifigures use it?
Yes.
Okay.
That brings up a whole lot of extra questions about
Minifigure anatomy. Hey, this would be the guy to ask.
okay.
I spend my day with them.
Where does the crotch begin?
They dumped water over the runway twice.
You got to see so much cool stuff.
I didn't see that.
Gosh.
I caught it flying in and doing that when it was raining, and then Austin got film of it the next day, I think.
Well, very cool. So I'm first year for Brickmania, but certainly not going to be our last. So that's kind of our recap here from EAA. Make sure to stay tuned. We'll have more content coming out for that over the next couple of months here. We have a lot of videos and interesting things that we were able to pick up there. So stay tuned for more of that. Otherwise, guys, thanks for joining me here. This was cool.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, is it pronounced EA or?
Yeah, Oshkosh 2019.
Air show. I think they're just so excited about it. They're so excited about the Oshkosh Air Show. Airventure.
Airventure. It's not an adventure.
An air show adventure. Airventure.
But the signs leading up to it for the exit, didn't it say air show? Or did it say Airventure?